Hey everybody, welcome back to another live Q&A with BRStv. Brian here, and again with my buddy Kyle from our BRStv or Ask BRS social media network, right? So you're basically
BRS,
sit behind the screen all day long and answering questions.
Yes, I scroll Instagram for a living.
Yeah, so he loves that he's got a little free time this afternoon, so he's going to do more answering questions during that time. So that's awesome. So we really capitalize on Kyle. Before we get started with some of the live questions, so start firing them in there, guys. So sorry, just if you've got questions, anything about reefing, life in general, doesn't really matter, throw them in the comments and we'll try to get to as many as we can. So before we get started up here, so we've actually had a lot of questions in some of the previous live streams, like a ton of them about refugiums and, how, one of the, I think, main topics or one of the main focuses around some of those questions is, hey, I've got an all-in-one, or I've got a small tank, or I don't have a sump. How do I get a refugium on my tank? Because the benefits are there. I see them. How do I do that? So what we did, we got a couple products here, a couple things out just to help you guys out so you can see what we're talking about. So one, we've got this hang on the back or hang on the side, however you want to say it, refugium.
You can hang on the front if you want.
You can hang on the front if you want. It's going to obstruct your view of your aquarium just a smidge. But the nice thing is it has a little viewing window in the back, so at least you'll get to see your macroalgae growing. Yes. So that's super cool. But so we've got this hang on the back or hang on refugium, which is awesome. It's an awesome product. And this really cool submersible refugium light, so if you've got one of those all-in-one aquariums with just a really small compartment, you don't want a light sticking up in it, or even something like this. It works great for one of these hang on the backs. This light can just be submerged in there, held on with a magnet. It's awesome, awesome product. So before we get going any further, Kyle, run us through some of the really cool features of both of these products.
So starting with this one, this is great if you have a smaller tank with no sump. It can also work with some all-in-ones depending on the spacing of your chambers and how okay you are with splashing and how the orientation is with the outflows and everything. This is a great option. It's going to grow macroalgae really well, whatever you want to put in there. Pair it with your favorite refugium light, whether you want to light it from the top or when we get to this in a little bit, you can also light it from below or within with a submersible refugium light. Just kind of put it in however you'd like, but this is a great way to add some extra volume to your smaller tank and also just get some of that benefit of the refugium with a couple pods and just nitrate and phosphate removal with the macroalgae. So I like this a lot for a affordable way to add water volume and filtration to a smaller system.
Yeah, I think the water volume thing, that's huge too, right? So, especially if you've got a smaller area or one of those really nice cubes, I mean, that's a great way to add just a little bit extra volume, increase that stability. But it's, like Kyle said too, great place for pods to breed. So you can even add some little pod hotels or something in the bottom of these things because it's just big enough for some of that stuff. Awesome.
Yeah. Also, if you don't like seeing your equipment in the tank, so if you don't have an all-in-one or have a smaller tank, no sump, you can also hide your heater in here too. So
yeah, there you go.
Good way to hide your gear and keep everything in the display nice and clean. There's another thing I like about these HOB filters.
Yeah, really cool. All right, so then talk to us about this Tunzi.
So this Tunzi light pairs really well with this particular hang-on-back refugium as well as any other hang-on-back refugium. Some of the benefits are it's fully submersible, so you can illuminate the refugium either out of water by having it mounted above like your typical refugium light would be, or you can mount it all the way down underneath and light your Kato from underneath. Or if you have a large enough refugium, you can get two and light it from top and below, so your Kato more of a ball that gets no light in the middle. We'll get a little bit more light penetration because it's getting lit from multiple sides, which is really cool. The other thing I like about this being fully submersible is if you have a all-in-one tank, you don't need to worry about just a lighting from the top or possibly lighting all of your back chambers. You can just mount this inside, put it in, like your center chamber on your Innovative Marine all-in-one and grow Kato like no other. So nice way to do that without having to scrape any of the black paint off the back glass like you would with like the Innovative Marine one where you stick it to the side. So I like that light a lot.
Yeah, it's super cool. And there's literally, I was just taking a peek at this too. There's just no way, for anybody concerned out there that this thing's going to leak or you're going to get water intrusion on this thing. It's all the electronics are completely sealed in a resin. So I mean,
it's good.
It's as watertight as it possibly could be. Really cool product. A few different ways of mounting it. You can mount on the side here. You can even mount it upright from there to light it from the bottom. So they've really thought about everything for this. Check it out. If you got a limited space or even just one of those all-in-one, just slide it right in there.
Exactly.
Very cool.
One of my favorite refugium lights for that reason.
Well, there we go. So a couple really cool products, guys. Check them out if you're looking for something along those lines. All right, I'm going to get this big guy out of the way. But then those aquariums, did we mention that those come in different sizes, right?
No, that's just the one size.
Okay.
But it's good for, I believe, up to 60 gallons.
Up to 60 gallons? All right.
So yeah, if you got a 40 breeder at home, excellent addition.
Yeah, and I think there's some smaller ones out there, aren't there?
Yeah, there's some other ones. Fiji Cube has one. There's a couple other brands I can't think of off the top of my head. But
okay, very cool. All right, well, thanks. Yep, that's great. So there you go, guys. Cool solution to that particular problem. All right, so we got some questions coming in, so we're going to go ahead and start getting on these. Starting out, John Schumacher, thanks for joining. I think you were even a few minutes ahead of this thing starting, so that was really awesome. Okay, so hi guys, love this live chat. I'm using BRStv dry live rock I ordered from BRS for a new setup. Using live sand, can I still use Fritz Turbo Start to speed up the cycle, and should I rinse the rock? So,
good questions.
Great questions. Should you? I'll start with should you rinse. We'll just go backwards here. So it sounds like you've got the right idea here. You're going with live sand, dry live rock. It's great. Can you still use Fritz Turbo? Yes, you can.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you can use anything you want to speed up the cycle, right? The only thing that I never recommend, I guess, and there are people out there that do it, and it's debatable. The one thing I just never recommend to help or speed up a cycle is livestock. Fish. I mean, I will add, some members of the cleanup crew like pods, maybe some hermit crabs earlier on, not immediately. But I'm just not adding fish to the aquarium to cycle guy.
I'm not either.
I just don't like it, right? And it's because I've seen it fail too many times.
Not unless I'm using it from a tank transfer that I'm upgrading. So that's
the
only time I use livestock. Where you're it's already cycled. So.
Yeah, because you're transferring all the biological filtration as well, right? So, yeah, but use whatever you want. Anything you want to use to speed up that cycle, go for it, man. And should I rinse the rock?
Not needed.
Not needed.
I don't think it's going to hurt anything, but definitely not needed.
Yeah, there's no point. If you're just trying to reduce some of that, maybe that initial cloudiness in the water, that dust that you're going to get, sure, you can rinse it, but there's really not a...
I haven't found too much dust with the Life Rock from BRStv personally. Yeah. I think you're going to get more dust from the sand itself, especially being dry. So I definitely rinse the dry sand, being that you're not using the live version.
Yep.
But rinse the sand. I would personally just leave the rock alone.
Rinse the dry sand, not the live sand.
Yeah. Dry sand only, not the live sand. Use the rock as it is without rinsing. Aquascape how you like. And the beneficial thing with the BRStv Life Rock is it has dormant bacteria on it, so you're going to help kickstart your cycle with that rock in itself anyway. So I think with adding the Fritz Turbo or Dr. Tim's or whatever your bacteria of choice is, you're going to be off to a really good start and have a pretty quick cycle.
There you go. So good question. Excellent question. We got the man himself here, Greg Carroll. I think we know that guy.
Did you meet him at RAP?
I think I did meet him at RAP. He interrupted my interviews a few times. With his voice of Reef Blues, and it's great. We all love Greg.
Greg's
guy.
amazing.
Yep.
Beautiful time too.
And talk about just an organized guy. I mean, to be able to manage all that Reef Blues stuff, that's huge.
The chaos.
Do what?
The chaos.
The chaos. Yeah, I would not want to. So more power to you. All right, on the Toonsy, they also put out more power when submerged. He says just a little note he wanted to put out. Nice feature, he says.
Yes, I forgot about that part. I knew it was more power one way or the other. I couldn't remember if it was submerged or out of the water.
So when it's submerged, it's actually putting out more power.
Yeah,
that's very cool.
Which is good because it keeps. The water actually keeps the light cooler.
The light cooler,
so it's able to
produce more. Yeah, so it's able to put out more power because it's basically the entire light is a heat, or the tank is your heat sink for the light.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's very
awesome.
Cool. Thanks
for sharing that, Greg.
Yep, great tip there. Ashwin and Kyle, I'm going to throw this to you because I bet you've had to answer this question a billion times. Tips for Goniopora.
Tips for Goniopora?
For Goniopora.
I would say consistency is your number one choice. I can't say I've personally found anything particular that makes anyone have success with them personally. I personally just found being consistent and having stable water parameters, not changing things up too fast, has led to success. I have what would you say? It's probably like a mango-sized red Goni in my tank.
Yep.
That thing just loving life. I haven't been able to kill it. It's been through.
Well, I think that's the key. That's usually the key. I think when people have luck with a Goni, as long as they don't screw something up, that thing is going to be fine, right? It's like getting that initial, that first one to be like, okay, I'm fine in here, right?
Yeah. Crazy thing. I did mess up once. I found out that the two Gonis I do have cannot touch each other because the green one I have stings the other one really bad.
Yeah.
So the red one actually has had tissue die off because it's been stung, but it's bounced back and still grown.
Yeah, and gonnies aren't usually as bad as other corals that are going to throw out sweepers and things
Yeah.
like that, and like a Galaxia or a Hydnophora or something. But they will still sting each other, so keep an eye out for that.
Yeah.
And anything else that they touch. But there are some theories, and I don't know if there's actually any publications about the manganese.
Yeah, I've heard manganese, just general trace elements. I don't generally have to worry about that though, because I am using all three on my tank.
Yep.
So I don't really think about trace elements really in my personal experience because it's already taken care of.
Yeah, same thing. I use all for Reef on my tank at home, and I'll get the ICP test on it sometimes just for fun, and it's always like perfect.
Sounds good.
Because I'm using all for Reef, so I'm like, hey, well that's great. Right? Like,
yeah, I would say stability, and the best piece of advice I can give is get them from a source that you trust, that you know has really high quality corals, healthy corals, and isn't just fragging them up. I've found fresh cuts tend to be a little bit more finicky with the acclimation to a new environment. So you can find like a well encrusted one rather than a fresh frag that has like no tissue around the skeleton.
Nice just polyp extension and everything.
Then you'll be better off. Yeah. So that's what I would go off of. I personally am scared to frag my gonny, even though it probably should be fragged because it's getting big.
But you got to use, you pretty much got to use either a hammer or a saw.
Yeah,
right?
you got to use a saw for sure.
You could use a hammer. It's just not going to look very nice.
It's so beautiful and lush.
Yeah, it's hard to cut them up. I hear you. Yeah, it's just like it's like breaking up a big branching Euphilia, right? You feel bad because you're like, I'm going to crack this thing in half. I don't.
Yeah, and also I'm now thinking, if you have clownfish, just be careful that they already have a host because they do get a little irritated if you have very aggressively hosting clownfish.
Oh, sure.
They
don't like
rubbing
that.
up. Yeah, they don't like. Mine has gotten used to it, but they're not super aggressive about nuzzling up on it.
A lot of rubbing against the skeleton probably doesn't really bode well for them.
I had the old pair that I had was very aggressive about rubbing up on the skeleton.
Yeah.
All the time.
And that's going to irritate
it was like half
tissue
closed all the time for that half of the gonny, but.
Yeah. Okay, well, there you go. Good tips.
Yeah.
And another tip, I guess, I probably wouldn't make it a start coral. Like if it's your first coral, I probably just wouldn't go with a gonny personally.
Yeah.
Try something else. Try some zoas or something along those lines.
Try the hammers, frog spawns first.
Yeah, something like that. If you're going LPS, if you're in that ready to go for LPS, don't make a Goniopora your first choice. All right. Jamal Hicks, will a maroon clown turn into a female alone, or does it have to be paired up?
That is a great question. I actually see this a lot on social media and had someone DM us yesterday because they had 2 pairs of clownfish. Both the males ended up dying, and they were wondering if they could put the 2 females together. But don't mix the 2 female clownfish together. And all clownfish will turn female if they are alone or the most dominant. So if you leave a clownfish by itself for a prolonged period of time, there is no social hierarchy. There's no one else to be the dominant one, so it will turn female.
They will become dominant.
So if you have a lone clownfish, I always go with the basis of assume it's female and always add a smaller individual to an existing clownfish for the best chance of things actually working out and having a pair.
Now, when they're adults, so let's just say you've got one in that pair, so you've got a female-male pair, right? And let's just say you've got one that's switched, or that maybe was in a pair, then it becomes the dominant, it becomes the female. What happens if it loses a partner then, or it gains, or if you throw a bigger one in there, is it going to switch back the other way?
They don't revert back.
Correct.
Unless you catch it like super early, like the next day, you're probably, I would not risk it. I would just always go smaller individual.
That's what I was kind of getting at. So don't think, just because they can switch, especially they can go like the male, the female, but they'll become more dominant, they can't just keep flopping.
Yeah.
So
the only species I know that this has happened with is some wrasses and some angelfish. But even then, I'm not sure if they actually fully revert back or if they just change their coloration to avoid aggression from the more dominant male.
Sure.
So, but always add a smaller one first. That way you have a better chance of a pair.
There you go. And with maroons, it's usually easier to find a smaller one.
Yeah, especially with maroons.
All right. Carlito's Ways. Opinion on cade tanks. I don't know cade tanks. Do you know cade tanks?
I don't know them in person, but I have seen them, and they are pretty cool in my opinion. I do like their overflow design, and I like that the ATO chamber that they have for the system is built into the top of the tank, so it's a gravity-fed ATO down into the sump with the ATO reservoir being up top, which I think is really cool. I also think the stand design is pretty unique as well with full access and I believe all 3 side panels are removable, so you can easily access the sump from any direction, which I think is really cool. But I personally don't have one. I really would love one, just to play around with and compare it to some other tank manufacturers out there. But as far as I know and what I've seen, they seem pretty legit as far as a quality aquarium company and have some pretty unique features compared to other manufacturers out there as well.
Cool. So if anybody anybody watching has some experience with Cade tanks or some feedback for Carlito's Ways, throw them in the comments so he's got that. But I haven't personally used one. Sounds like Kyle hasn't either. But
no, there's too many tanks out there.
There's a lot of and honestly, there's a lot of great manufacturers. It's one of the really cool things about where the hobby's going right now, but also one of the almost possibly frustrating, which it's a good frustration, right? It's like first world problem type thing here, right? Where we're like, oh, there are so many tank manufacturers to choose from. There are so many, coral farms to choose from. There are, so many fish breeders I can choose from. But it's...
I mean, I'll just put it this way. There's more tank manufacturers than I have room in my house to test tanks out on.
Correct.
So I can't...
Correct. Yeah.
Unless one of you wants to buy me a bigger house.
Well, that would be great. Yeah. Anybody... Again, just comment and we'll get to you later if you'd like to donate larger facilities or homes to Kyle or I. That'd be
and
great.
Tanks.
And aquarium equipment will be great. All right. Sensei Greg, I'm having an emergency. I thought I had ick 2 days ago and think salt or bubbles were on my fish. They were gasping 2 days ago and 2 days later, no white spots, bubbles, and no gasping. Should I quarantine? I mean, it sounds to me like no. If everything kind of went back to normal.
Tricky without seeing the dots myself in person. But the gasping does kind of line up with a parasitic disease similar to ick, because ick and velvet and other similar parasites tend to infect the gills first because they're the weakest tissue. There's not very much slime coat on the gills compared to the actual body of the fish. The question of quarantine is kind of a bit loaded. It depends on what kind of effort you want to put in and what kind of goals you have set up with the approach that you take. So if you have a tank that is large or really difficult to get apart and really hard to catch fish, that's going to be more hassle than it's worth. I would probably go the route of ick management personally and look at options like a UV sterilizer, running a sediment filter on the tank, and just making sure that you're feeding a really good wide variety of foods that help boost the fish's immune system and lower any stressful events in the environment to keep the immune system as boosted as possible. Yeah, because that's the way I would go personally.
That's the thing too. I mean, if you go pulling a fish out of the tank it's in, especially if it's a large complex system, and you spend all this time trying to get you tear its home apart, and you spend all this time trying to get, you're stressing that fish out a lot, just to get it into another environment that it doesn't know what's going on, right? So if it's already stressed, you're just putting that little bit more undue stress onto it, and it's really just not necessary. If you can, like Kyle said, go with that ick management on the tank side as a whole, you're probably better off.
Yeah, I think there is merits to doing a full quarantine, hospital setup, doing our ick eradication.
Sure.
I just think that's for a truly dedicated hobbyist that is dedicated to protecting the fish and the corals and the entire system, just because it's going to require you to be extra meticulous with your coral dipping, quarantining and observing everything before you add it to the tank in the future. So if you know you're going to be getting more corals, more fish, you'll then have to plan and set up quarantine and observation fallow periods for non-fish and inverts ahead of time. So that way you don't reintroduce ick 2 months down the line.
Sure.
So just something to consider in my opinion with that topic. Near dusk, setting up an 80-gallon mixed reef. Do I really need 1 pound of rock per gallon?
No, I mean, you don't. What I do is whenever I'm setting up a tank now, I'll usually order or buy about 1 pound of rock, especially with the dry rock now. It's nice because I can just buy 1 pound per gallon, and then I'll use, maybe 60, 70% of it. Then I'll have extra rock. I can either, take that back to the local fish store or be like, oh, I guess I need to set up a new tank now, right?
More rock, more tanks.
Yeah, but I like to, with the dry live rock, it's nice because you're not going to kill it. It can just sit there. When you're ordering live rock, I would order less. You can always order more, but then if you've got too much, you're like, oh.
Need a bin.
What am I going to do with this? Yeah, you don't want to kill it.
You have a brute trash can full of live
full
rock.
of water. Yeah, don't do that to yourself. So I would order, if you're not sure, I would order less than you need if it's live rock. If you're going with dry rock, I always order a little bit more. Then I can make a really cool structure and just decide when I'm done building.
Yeah.
So,
It depends on where you're purchasing, in my opinion. So if you're ordering online, like from us here at BRS, I would go 1 pound of rock per gallon because it's better to have too much rock to work with and let your creativity flow than it is to end up getting less rock and have less options for your aquascape. So that's how I've always done it. Before I worked here, I would order like 1 to 1.5 pounds per gallon. That way I didn't have to worry about, oh, I don't have enough rock. I really want to do this, but I need like 10 more pounds.
Yeah, I literally just built a rock structure the other day for a 70-gallon tank that I'm setting up, and I have like half the rock still because I got done and I was like, I don't want any more. That's all I want in there. So I still have like, but then I'm like, okay, I'm just going to set up another 70-gallon tank to put that in. So
exactly,
it's not the worst scenario ever.
Less rock for your next build. That's all I got to say.
And it depends on what kind of rockscape you want too. You want a really open, very minimalistic rockscape. I mean, if you really wanted, you could have just, I guess, technically no rock, or you could just have like a rock in the center. I mean, it's your style. It's whatever you want, right? So if you like a big complex rock structure and you want to get creative with it, go the route that we said, order more than you need, and you can either just return it or just you'll have a little extra for another tank down the road or whatever. So there you go.
Greg Carroll's got another question.
Greg Carroll's back. Thanks, Greg. You're the man. Have any of you guys at BRS played with the Max Spec Infinite? At $5.99, it seems like a beast of a light.
I think he's talking about the ethereal light.
The ethereal.
Yeah, with the
ethereal
RGB
light. So I played with it a little bit at RAP, but that's about it. At Reef Palooza, I got to play with a little bit, and it is a beast, man. That thing was pretty cool, but I haven't really gotten my hands on it any further than that. I don't have any experience with how it does on the tank. But man, it puts out a lot of light.
Yeah, it looks intense.
The
wattage is pretty high up there. I think it's really good. From what I've seen, I haven't played with it on my tank yet. I'm considering swapping my lights out for it because I think it looks really cool.
And some just handy features about it too.
I saw you flipping
the
it up.
flip up and it turns off so you can just get in there and work. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. I've seen it has like presets for different reefs around the world, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, that was a really cool feature. So you can be like, and I thought that was really neat because it's something that I've thought about doing at home, like in just some smaller, maybe some cubes or something, but like specific environment reef. So like I'm like, oh, I'm going to build an offshore, like a Bahamas reef, or I'm going to build a Indo-Pacific reef or something like that, and just have it very specific to those places, only species that you'll find there, things like that, just to make it kind of fun. The thought was, you can actually go in there and select those regions and mimic the actual photo periods for those.
Yeah, that's really something cool. that I really want to play with.
Yeah, it's a cool idea.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah,
I think it's awesome. My dream tank right now is a like lagoon style Solomon Island reef with just a ton of millipores. That'd be.
You and I, we like millipores. Yeah, see that'd be a perfect one. That'd be great.
That'd be fun.
It'd be an awesome tank. So. I haven't played with it much. I just with Reef Palooza, we did a little video on it where Howard showed us a little bit on it. But yeah, check it out. It looks really cool. I was impressed.
I don't know. Ask again in a month. Maybe I'll have played with it by then.
There you go. Glaucoma, welcome back again. Frequent flyer here on the lives. Speaking of clowns, I know, Kyle kind of looks like one. Any secret tips to get them to host coral?
No. I'll say it's very much just luck of the draw, and it's always a coral you don't want them in.
Yep.
In my experience,
I've had tanks before and I've seen tanks before. I've set up tanks before with anemones, coral. I mean everything, and they won't host any of it. They're just like, no, I like this spot in the rock over here, and they won't bail on it.
Or the powerhead.
The clown in this tank was hosting this clam for a while, so you just never know what they're going to pick and why. I'm always jealous of the folks sometimes when they've got like this just beautiful, perfect anemone, and the clowns are just like they're like, this is mine. I'm like, yeah, see, you kind of just got lucky. They really did. So
yeah, my pair of clownfish in my tank here, they live in the Ghani. I have had an anemone in there for just as long as the Ghani. They've always liked the Ghani, and then it was probably about a month ago they decided that they'll do the anemone as well. So they do both.
Yeah.
But it's not just the anemone, it's not just the Ghani anymore, but it's mostly the Ghani.
Yep.
Vacation home is the anemone at this point.
Sure. Yeah, I don't
Real
know.
estate moguls.
I think one of my dreams for that was always like a really nice carpet with a couple like Clarky clowns in it.
That'd be fun.
But I could never get them to. They would just beautiful carpet, and they're like, we're good.
They're like, we don't want that.
They're like, we're good.
We're
There's
better
a
than that.
leather coral up here I'm going to hang out in. Yeah, you're just like, whatever. So,
The view's better.
yeah, exactly. I don't know what their problem is. But yeah, so I don't have any. Again, if anybody out there has some, throw them in there. Throw them in the comments and help out glaucoma. But again, guys, if you're just joining us, welcome. Another BRS Q&A session with me and Kyle here. If you got any questions, throw them in the comments and we'll try to get to them as best we can. We're stacking up here. I better get on it.
Yeah.
All right, so Bozo Wings. Hi, I can't seem to get rid of algae. I hear you. I have green and black flat algae on my live rocks and brown and green that looks alive growing on the 4 returns and the 2 back channels. I've had the aquarium for 10 years. Good job.
Nice.
I mean, yeah, nice.
That's impressive.
Yeah, so it's a nice mature system, which means you've probably got every possible type of algae and nuisance creature in there. Just, they've just decided to show up recently, or I don't know, maybe it's been a while. But Kyle, I'm gonna let you take this one.
You think so? Flat algae makes me think of cyano for some reason. That's kind of what I'm thinking of. It's just like a flat mat.
I've had
algae.
this thick, like black mat algae, like that's grown in the sand beds before, and then it gets exposed and just kind of hangs out. But it doesn't really spread too bad or anything. It's just kind of there.
Yeah.
It looks weird, but
I've not experienced that, but I'm kind of thinking it might be cyano just based on the green, black, brown nature of it. It could be a form of cyano. Or it could be just an entirely different type of algae that I've not encountered before. But irregardless of that, I would recommend manual removal is probably your best friend.
That's about all.
I think with some elbow grease, your hands, a siphon are going to be your best friends in this situation, just to get out as much as you can. Stay on top of your husbandry, especially if it's cyano. Just make sure you're not having a bunch of leftover food when you're feeding, or just change up your flow pattern a little bit, and that might just change the environment and where things collect and might just help get rid of that. If it is actually cyano, you can use like a cyano clean, stuff like that. But in my experience, manual removal for any algae is the best approach. It's not fun, but does the job.
Yeah, and if you've got an older tank, it's something that I've actually recently, help people out with, just where they've got a mature tank and they have an algae problem. They're like, oh, I have snails and stuff in there, and I'm like, oh yeah, when did you add your snails and your hermit crabs? And they're like, oh, like 3 years ago. I'm like, well they might not be in there anymore. So there's a good chance, so maybe bump up your cleanup crew. That's another way to help. Add some grazers, algae blenny, whatever the case may be. So there are things in there that'll help. Obviously, they're not going to help much with cyano. But if you've got some green and brown like film algae, they'll get on that stuff. So, but nutrient control, elbow grease, competition. If you don't have a refugium, maybe think about throwing one of those on.
Yeah.
We just talked about this guy just at the beginning of the show, right? Hang on the back. You could always put one of those on. So there are things you can do to outcompete that algae, which is another option. But honestly, yeah, Kyle's right on. Manual removal is usually the way to go until it's gone. I mean, it's just a slow battle. Don't expect the results overnight. All right, good question. Brian Marquez, I am new, but welcome aboard, and decided to combine 2 tanks to 1 sump. Okay, one is a 75-gallon cube, so not much surface. We'll have live sand and live rock. Alongside is a 150-gallon dry rock bare bottom, 75-gallon sump. How would I try to cycle this? This sounds more complicated than it is, but you're going to cycle it the same way you would if you had just one of the 2 tanks on there. Just add some beneficial bacteria if you don't already have a source of it, which it sounds like you said live dry rock. Live sand and then all dry rock.
So I would add something like Dr. Tim's and add the ammonium chloride to tank, cycle it the same way. When you test the water, being that everything's tied to one sump, the water's chemistry is going to be the same between both systems or both tanks. So I would cycle it the same way you would with just a standard single tank, single sump setup. I wouldn't do anything differently personally. Yeah.
One thing I would do with, and this is something I do on my tanks as well, if I'm using all dry rock, I find some way to increase the biofiltration. So I would add like some marine pure BioBlocks or the BioBlocks from Polyp Lab. I right? The power blocks, whatever they're called. Yeah. So just find some of that biomedia to throw in your sump, and you could just stack that stuff in there, and then you're going to get a lot of colonization of bacteria in there. So just to help out that filtration system. If I'm using all that, no live rock, I will increase my biological filtration. So.
Oh. I just got shorter.
Kyle's trying to disappear on us there.
I'm just trying to match your height.
Thanks. There's a reason we're not standing, right? It's so that we appear to be the same height right now.
Yeah.
Okay. So thanks for that, Kyle. I appreciate that. All right. Kyle will not be on any more Q&As. So, hi, it's XD Gray. Hi. I have 2 clownfish. The smaller one has started driving the bigger one into a corner. When the bigger one tries to leave, the smaller one is pushing it back into it. Are they pairing up? I mean,
clowns are interesting.
Yeah.
Depends on how long they've been together, honestly. So if this is 2 new fish that you got within the past couple months, still is probably at a pecking order being sorted out. Could be if they are relatively new to being just the 2 of them by themselves. The larger one may not be more aggressive or more dominant, just personality-wise, and the smaller one is happening to be more dominant personality-wise. So I would watch it, but if you see any like torn fins, or if it's getting to the point where one of the fish isn't eating, I would recommend doing an acclimation box just to separate the 2.
Until they get used to each other. Yeah.
And give them some time, give them a couple days, try reintroducing, see if it gets any better. If it's not getting any better, then I would see if you could swap out one of the 2 with your local fish store. Probably get a different one that's smaller than your smaller of the 2.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, all great advice. Yeah. And then, too, assuming they're the same species, so you're not running into any problems there. But, it's important to note, like, all fish are different. They've all got their own personality. It's like a dog, right? I mean, it's just like any other animal out there. They're all going to differ slightly. There's general rules of thumb for a lot of them, like, hey, this fish is usually a jerk, right? But that doesn't mean they all are, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's important to remember, and we just did a video about damselfish recently, but, I mean, everybody knows that damsels are very territorial, right?
Yep.
Well, clowns are a member of the damselfish family. So they're a damsel. So they are going to be territorial as well. So just like Kyle said, there might be a pecking order that they're trying to work out, and they may eventually, they may not. And like you said, if you see damage occurring, I'd probably split them up. Okay? All right. What would be the most common freshwater to saltwater mistakes? Any tips and tricks? The most common, this is Hama Honey. What would be the most common I see FW and I think firmware and software. Freshwater to saltwater.
Softwater.
That's a freshwater to saltwater mistakes. Any tips or tricks? You get any of these in Ask BRS?
I don't really get too much of like common mistakes. I would say it's more so just a learning curve. So if you are good at learning and finding resources to understand what you need to know for your saltwater tank versus your freshwater tank, you're going to find success. Say the biggest challenge is going to be just the extra level of chemistry you need, because there's chemistry with both sides of freshwater and saltwater, but saltwater is a little bit more intense as far as you need to know a variety of parameters. Freshwater is a little bit more condensed to knowing if you have like soft pH, your alkalinity, hardness, where saltwater is like salinity, pH, alkalinity, calcium, magnesium, a little bit more in depth. So I would say the chemistry is the biggest hang up. But premise as far as fish go, it's relatively the same care. Just make sure your salt levels are correct and you're feeding the correct foods. She's saying hi.
Jolene wanted to come say hi. Yeah, I was going to say the big thing I guess I always see too is just more misconceptions than really mistakes.
Yeah.
And one of those is just that like a lot of people are like, oh, it's just so much harder, and it's not. It's just like you said, it's a learning curve. It's just different. It's not necessarily harder. It's there is maybe a little more complexity to certain aspects of it, but if you're a successful freshwater hobbyist, you can be successful in saltwater if you just take your time, ask good questions, find somebody that you can trust to talk to and learn. You'll be fine.
Yeah, I think.
So,
no. I don't think there's a lot of mistakes. I think it's just information misconceptions that are hard to overcome.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
If you have questions, don't be afraid to ask them.
Yep. For sure.
Wherever.
100%.
Here, ask me on Instagram.
Yep. You can ask Jolene.
Yeah.
She'll tell you.
She's a real expert.
Yep. All right. Be good.
Liv Wilson. Best way to manage green hair algae in nano tank without changing light too much.
Yeah, so we touched on this a minute ago, and it's one of the most common questions we have. It's algae maintenance or algae control, and you know, one of the, like Kyle said earlier, one of your the biggest gun you've got is the manual removal thing.
His hands right here.
Yeah, I mean it really is, because eventually you're gonna. Because I mean, green hair algae, I've seen it when it grows, it'll just stay there. I mean, I've gotten nutrient levels down to just dead zero, and it's like, nah, I'm good, right? But as soon as you remove it, it's like, oh, I don't have the energy to grow back. I don't have the nutrients to grow back, but it'll stay as long as you let it. It'll slowly die off, but pulling it out really takes care of it. But if you really want some great information, you know, Thomas, one of the other BRStv hosts, does a great segment, Help I Wrecked My Tank. Covers a lot of really, really good, he does a great job covering a lot of common, you know, issues and problems that arise in saltwater aquariums. So, and one of those is green hair algae. So check out that video. He goes through a lot of the process of how to manage it and get rid of it. So, I'll say that.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. Stop watching me, go watch him.
Yeah, watch Thomas. He goes in depth, has multiple approaches. I don't think any of them mention changing your lights. I think that's a bit of a misconception in my experience. The algae grows in the same place that corals grow in the ocean, so changing your light spectrum is not really going to swing it one way or another. I think that's just a myth, in my opinion.
Lee Fleming, I have a Hello Reef 15-gallon setup from y'all. Would I benefit from adding a second AI blade grow to get more spread across the tank, or should I go for the raised light stand? Opinions on the blade glow? Great question, Lee, and I can answer this because I have an SPS-dominated Hello Reef at home. And for the longest time, I was running 2 AI blades on it.
Nice.
So now, and that was literally just for the spread. I had to dial them back to about, I think maybe 50% intensity, because those things are so bright. If you turn them all the way up to 100, you're killing anything underneath it. I mean, I guarantee, because wherever you bought it from is not getting that much light. Because they just burn hot. I mean, they don't produce a lot of heat. They produce a lot of light. That's for the size and for the cost of those lights, they are incredible. But, so yeah, I was doing the exact same thing. I had 2 coral grows on mine. And I switched out because I wanted more of that blue spectrum. And what I was thinking about for a long time was actually taking and adding a coral glow and taking off one of the coral grows. But I never did. I just ended up switching out. Now I'm an idiot. I got an XR15 over it now, because why not? Just
completely swapped out.
Yeah, I did. But, and a lot of that was just because I wanted to try it. But I was getting great growth and color both out of those blades, even the grows. So if you're wanting those specific, like a little bit more of the UV spectrums and some more of those violets and things like that, then the glow's the way to go. But I think it would be a cool mix to have a grow and a glow, because then you kind of get everything.
Yeah. I would say the addition of a second blade grow really depends on what you have in your tank. I would only do it personally if it was for SPS personally. I don't think if you're doing LPS or softies or the anemones, bubble tip anemones, you shouldn't really need a second blade on there at all to get the spread that you need. It puts out just enough light for all of those corals and has enough spread for those corals, as it is with just the single light. If I were to add a second one with SPS, I probably would go the glow personally, just because I want to get that extra color pop that actinic, deep purple UV spectrum would offer from the glow. And it would also give you a little bit extra power for the SPS, and I think it's good. Yeah, good if you're going to go SPS route.
Absolutely. So great question, and I have a similar experience. So good job. Humble blue collar. Yeah, me too. What lighting setup would you recommend for a 75-gallon mixed reef? Brand, model, number of fixtures, etc. What lighting setup would you recommend? Well, it really depends on your budget. If we're going pie in the sky here, like if we're going like
3.14?
Yes, pie, 3.14, 148, no, okay, yeah. No, so if it was just like money wasn't an object, I mean, there's actually a few routes I would probably go swap back and forth on, like I'm trying to decide which one I would go with. The Radion XR30s, you could have like 2 of those on there, or even if you just didn't want that much, like if you weren't going to go with like a really heavy SPS, you could do 2 XR15s probably, and that would be enough light. I'm intrigued by the ATI Stratons.
Yeah, if you got no budget limit.
If you've got no budget limit,
those look really cool.
Super cool. I mean, they're like tablet thin, awesome spread, no fan on them because the whole light is the heat sink. Really, really cool looking light that we did. I did an interview with the ATI guys at Reef Palooza. You can find that video on our channel. So, but super cool light, absolutely stunning device. Then, but they are spendy. And then we were just talking about the Max Spec.
I was just gonna say,
yep.
Max Spec Ethereal is what I would probably go with, mostly because I love the idea of it. Really want to get my hands on it, and it's also only $5.99 each. So and a little bit more soft on the wallet. Yeah. Really good light intensity. Yeah. Really good spread, and I think you only need 2 of them.
And I tell you,
75 mixed Reef.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, two of any of those lights that I just mentioned is enough. Yeah. Right.
Or one Stratton, depending on which.
Or one Stratton, depending on which model, because those things are huge. But you got to get the mid-range, get 2 of them, and man, you've got more than enough light. Yeah. But with Max Spec, it's interesting. Like, I always see some of the Max Spec, and I have a Max Spec pump and protein skimmer at home on my tank that I'm running in, and they're great. Those little jump skimmers. But there's a few products that I've looked at and been like, I don't know about this. So then I turn it on, and I plug it in, I'm like, this thing's awesome.
I'm all for it.
Yeah. So they always surprise me with how good they are for the price. So yeah, check out Max Spec. That's another good one. Okay. Ben Sham, how often should I change the filter media in my 24-gallon aquatop? How will it affect my chemistry, your filter media in your 24-gallon aquatop?
I'm going to assume you're referring to something like GFO or other phosphate-reducing media and carbon. I would change those once per month. So if you go too long without changing your GFO or other phosphate-reducing media, you're going to notice phosphates increase as soon as it's exhausted. For carbon, you're going to just notice that the water gets yellower and tinted.
The benefits of carbon will wear off. You'll stop seeing it.
Just stops.
Yeah, yeah. So. It's not nothing really terrible is going to happen if your carbon gets expired or spent and all filled up. All the space is full of gunk. But yeah, it'll stop working. That's the big thing there. But yeah, GFO is a problem because it's going to start throwing stuff back into your aquarium. If you're talking about, like, when I hear filter media, I also think of like floss media and things like that. Yeah. Or filter socks, just those, change as needed if they look disgusting. And
twice a week.
Yeah, and for me when they start inhibiting water flow through them, that's usually my sign. Like if it's in a sump or something, you see the water sitting on top of it and slowly working its way through it. I'm like, okay, it probably needs changed.
That's usually my tank telling me I'm too lazy.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like you're neglecting me a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. Triggerfish 45. What are y'all's thoughts? That's like the third person in here that said y'all. I love it. What are y'all's thoughts on those filter sock replacement things that use a bunch of stacking discs? Ever tried them? No. So have you seen these?
I saw them. I think that you're probably a bit more hands-on than I was.
I saw them at Reef Palooza. That was like the first time I really messed with them at all. I mean,
I like the concept a lot.
I like the concept a lot. I really do. And I was like this close to being like, hey, can I just have one to try it? But I didn't because, I don't always like asking for free stuff. But the only issue is if you're trying to get really fine the micron level just doesn't go that low, right? I mean, I think it was like the 50. They had like a 50 and 100 micron, which is I don't know if it went down even that low.
I don't remember the specs. I was looking at it.
I don't think it went down that low. I think it was 200 microns was the lowest it went. 200 or 100 microns was either way. Yeah. Check out the specs on. I don't want to speak for or talk bad about it. I'm not, because I think it's a great idea. I think it's really cool, especially for catching particulate matter or catching leftover food and things like that in the water. It's going to do a great job at that. What it's not going to do is polish that water for you. It's not going to take out a lot of the really fine stuff in your water if you've just got a little haze or whatever the case may be. It's not going to grab that stuff. But the good part about that, sorry.
I was going to say, I think it's a really good step in between filter floss and socks and a filter roller. Yeah. It's like in between where you still have to clean it, but it's easier to clean than your filter sock is. And you're not throwing something away like you are with filter floss. So it's a little bit more eco-friendly.
The other thing, it is definitely more eco-friendly. The other thing I like about it is it's catching a lot of that particulate matter, but it's not catching stuff that you want to stay in the water. Like if you're feeding Fido and things like that. It's not going to catch that stuff and filter it out and grab a hold of it. So there's definitely some benefits there. But yeah, check it out. And
I like it.
I do too. I thought it was a really cool idea. And they have, I think the folks that I saw there at Reef had like 4 or 5, and I apologize that I don't remember the name of the brand. If somebody does, please throw it in the comments so everybody can see it. And if you're out there watching people that made those, I apologize. You guys, really cool product. But it comes in a few different sizes. Pretty cool stuff.
Awesome.
You're next.
I think Liv Wilson is back again with another question.
It's Liv.
Is it possible to allow green hair algae to grow in the back AIO area instead of the main area? Absolutely.
Yeah.
You just got to put some light back there and give it a surface to grow on. It will probably grow on its own. I've had all-in-one tanks where just the light bleed from my main display light is enough to get a little bit of hair algae growing right at the surface level.
Yep.
But definitely possible. Essentially, you'd be setting up a refugium-esque type of area rather than using macroalgae. You can grow hair algae if you want, but it's gonna be a little bit harder to remove than your chaetomorpha. If you
I mean, it's like
that.
It's like at that point you're kind of, and I've never minded hair algae like in my sump and stuff. I'm like, yeah, you stay down there.
Better hear them at display tank.
Exactly. But it's kind of, you're almost kind of getting into like algae scrubber at that point, right? Because that's essentially what you're doing. You're growing all kinds of different algae in a scrubber screen. So something's fishy. Aquarium fanatic, AF. I'm assuming that means aquarium fanatic. What are the odds of something's fishy AF? Aquarium fanatic. Thank you. What are the odds of getting a series on doing the coding for Apex? That's actually a great idea. We've talked about doing some. We've talked a little bit. I mean, we've got a lot. You can imagine there are just so many ideas for videos that we're trying to produce, and we just can't produce them quick enough, right? And I do more here than just videos. So, but you know, we've got several folks out there that are doing a lot of these different things, you know. But we have talked about it would be really cool at some points to have a master class like that where we're going through some of those things, because there are some folks, or even interviewing people that are doing some of these really cool. You know, programming stuff with Apexes that they're, you know, really customized stuff that they're willing to share, because a lot of those guys are happy to share that stuff. But yeah, we've talked about that, like doing some kind of master class with that, because it would be really interesting to give people some more of that know-how. Because really, once you learn the coding language for it, the programming language for it, sky's the limit in what you do. I mean, you can do literally whatever you want with it. So
I will say also, if you ask your programming questions in the Ask BRS Facebook, or not Ask BRS, the Neptune Systems community group, or other Neptune Systems channels out there, they have a new series that they've been doing recently called Ask Me Anything. So you can ask anything Neptune related, and you'll probably get an answer from Paul and Patrick, who are the two nerdiest, most tech guru, programming savvy people that I know personally. They could probably help you out, probably have it on a YouTube video in an Ask Me Anything style format. So I would say put it out there in the Facebook group for Neptune Systems. Might be on a video in a couple months. So
and Neptune, that group, they have a YouTube channel as well, so they put out some stuff. If you're not subscribed to that, check them out. But yeah, we can always collab with those guys too, and you know, try to bring those guys in and talk to them about some of that stuff. So, but no, great idea, and we've actually thought about that too. So. Thank you, something's fishy, AF. Okay, let's try to buzz through a few more of these because we're getting close to our hour mark here. All right, so my ankle man, what is the effect of excess magnesium in the tank inadvertently overdosed to approximately 1550 ppm?
What is the effect? It depends on how grossly overdosed you are. If you're if you are already seeing at 1400, probably not going to see as much of a change as if you were at 1200. I would probably, if it were me personally in my aquarium and I saw this, I would first look and see how the corals are reacting. If polyps are out, coloration's still good, things are looking normal, I would just leave it as it is.
Don't panic.
If you're seeing a lot of corals that are looking a little upset, a little stressed out, polyps are closed up, things are looking a little pale, a little stressed out, then I would do a pretty big water change. I would do like a 50% water change, get it back in line, and just carry on. If
you notice there's a problem, water change. If not, keep calm, carry on.
Water changes solve a lot.
There you go. Off the main road. I'm guessing he's from Maine.
No pun intended, right?
No pun intended. Starting my first saltwater tank. Yay.
Proud of you.
It is a 42-gallon cube with sump. My question is, how much filtration should I have? As a starting point, how many times an hour should my tank be cycling. So going from the sump and back up to the main. So you're talking about tank volume turnover rate, which is funny because I literally just did a video about this. I just recorded a video like this morning about that.
Hint,
so
coming soon.
Yeah, exactly. Stay tuned for more. No, so industry standards like 5 to 10 times per hour. So for that total volume turnover, but honestly, anywhere from 2 to 10 is fine.
Yeah.
I mean, and a lot of people go 2 to 5 because it just keeps that water down in the sump, increases that contact time with all your filtration, the protein skimmer, everything else, it doesn't matter. Not really sure. There's debates on that, but I've seen it successful all different ways. So
yeah. So I would say my personal end goal is to have turnover of the sump filtration end up between the 3 to 5 times turnover rate. In order to achieve that, though, pick a pump that is rated for flow rate that is about 10 times turnover, because by the time you factor in all the head pressure, all those elbows,
which
friction.
is literally what the video I recorded this morning was about, choosing the right return pump. So that's coming.
So pick the 10 times turnover rated pump, because you're going to have head pressure that drops that flow rate down pretty significantly by the time you factor in the 3 to 5 feet of head height you got from that pump.
Yeah,
down below,
and a lot of the, especially like the internal pumps and things that are out now, they're just not built for a lot of head pressure. They're great pumps, but they're just not built like the old Iwakis and things like that can just handle a ton of head pressure.
Yeah.
They're just not made for that. So
all those old mag drives.
You got it. Yeah, the big mag drives. It looks like a pool pump on your fish tank, which I have seen before. Like literally pumps this big. I
have one at my parents' house.
Yeah, there you go.
Mag 12.
Yeah, they were big suckers too, weren't they? Always fun to get them and plumb them in though, because they just looked awesome, and then they buzzed all them when they were going. Anyway, so yeah, just general rule of thumb, 5 to 10 times. How much filtration should you have? It really depends on your bio load, right? So how much you're going to put? You're going to like pack that thing, then you're going to want to increase your filtration.
And also how complicated you want it to get.
Yeah.
Because I can give you a couple recommendations.
Yeah, because that can go on. Man, that's almost a loaded question.
It is a little loaded.
And as it is with many of the questions we get here, it depends.
But if it was your tank, what would you put on there for filtration?
For a 42-gallon cube, I would probably have a small refugium space because I love refugiums. It's just my thing. Or maybe an algae scrubber if I could find one that fits. But I would have some filter socks or a media bag full of carbon in there, probably somewhere, or a carbon reactor. Then protein skimmer.
Nice.
Call it a day.
Nice. I think if it were my tank personally, I would go fleece roller if I could find one that fits, depending on which system you have. So I'm thinking if you have like a Red Sea, I think it's like the 200.
Yeah, if you could fit a fleece roller in there instead of a sock, go with that.
I would
it's just so much easier.
I would do the filter roller and then just a protein skimmer. Those are the only 2 pieces of filtration down there. And then I would just do carbon in a media bag, unless I really wanted to cram in a reactor. But those BRS mini reactors might fit really well.
Yeah, and to that too, I would probably just run my protein skimmer like at night or something.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even run it full time. So, okay, Gandalf the Wise, love it. What are the most personable fish you would recommend putting into smaller tanks under 60 gallons?
I love these questions.
I love these questions too, and I feel like you and I like almost always have the same answer for it.
Very similar.
So, big fan of dwarf angels. They're not like personable necessarily, but they've got a lot of personality to them.
Yeah.
But they're not going to like come up and be like, "Hey, how's it going?"
They're usually shy.
Yeah. I usually find that fish that are like in your face, personable, like, "Hey, buddy, good to see you again." They're usually bigger fish for some reason. I had a batfish in a tank once.
I've never had a batfish.
It was a big tank, obviously.
Yeah.
But he still outgrew it because they get huge. But he was so cool. He got like excited. Like he started changing colors when I came in the room. Like he'd flash like light, and dark and light and dark, and swim back and forth. Like, hey, I was like, "What's up, dude?" And like feed him. Yeah, just get all happy. I used to work at a local fish store where we had a pink tail trigger that would come up to the top of the water whenever you come up to the. It was in a big tub, right? And it wanted you to scratch its side. Literally, you would reach in there and you'd push it down onto a rock, and just sit there and scratch its side, and it would just sit there and let you. Yeah, it was wild. So
I'd be a little scared to do that because I don't want my finger gone.
It was just one of those things. He did it all the time, so you kind of just knew. I guess you trusted him. So
yeah. So depending on how small we're talking, I would say blennies are the general category or broad group of fish. top choice for personality.
Yeah, they're just goofy.
But if you're doing like specifically super nano tanks, tailspot blenny is my absolute hands down favorite blenny.
Yeah.
But those lawnmower blennies, algae blennies in general,
Bicolor blennies.
Yeah.
I mean, any of the blennies I've ever had, honestly, they're just like, you're like, what is this nut job doing in here?
Exactly.
They're just weird. They're just goofy little fish. Yeah.
Yes, and then if you have like a 40 to 60 gallon tank, flame hawkfish, probably another one of my favorites.
Yep.
Personality wise.
Little, just jumping around,
They hop
perching
around,
everywhere.
They stare you in the eyes.
Yeah, and just about any of the hawkfish are pretty interesting, but the flame hawks in particular are really goofy.
And then I would say that my last choice would probably be an assessor basslet or a royal grama. I like seeing them swim upside down, sideways.
Sure.
So
There you go. All right. Okay. Now I'm building my first reef tank, and it's 450 liters plus. So, and I don't know what that is in gallons. It holds water. So how should I mix that amount of water for the first time? Because the RODI system I have is one of those small systems, like 200 liters a day. So, you don't have to fill your tank all up all at once. That's another thing too. If you're putting live sand in there, just you're gonna want to cover that so it doesn't dry out. Like if you've got like Ocean Direct that's got some moisture to it, things like that. You want to put some water in there to keep it wet, but you can do it over several days. So just get yourself a Rubbermaid tub, a Rubbermaid trash can, and just
mix it up in a batch.
Do it up in batches. If you got to do it 3-4 times, that's fine.
Yeah. Also, if you're doing dry rock, dry sand, and no live rock or anything like that, you could just literally fill the whole tank up with RODI water first.
And then mix it
then
in the
mix
tank.
the salt in the tank.
Yep.
Use your power heads. That'll mix it up for you really easily.
Yep.
So that'd be a really easy approach if you don't have the space or a brew trash can right now. But if you're using live rock or have a live sand that you're using, either wait to add those to the tank until you have the tank filled, and you can still fill the bare tank with equipment up with just RODI water and then mix it up.
And I would probably, if you're going to do that too, I would probably try to find a nice high quality salt so it mixes really nice and clear. You don't get a bunch of that residue all over everything if you're going to mix it, especially if you're going to mix it in the tank. But yeah, doesn't really matter. All right, Bozo Wings is back. What's some good cleaning fish? Cleaning. What are we cleaning?
We're cleaning other fish, or are we cleaning the aquarium? Because we're talking cleaning.
Let's assume we're cleaning
the aquarium.
The aquarium, because honestly, like getting our hands on cleaning fish anymore is a little bit difficult, isn't it? I mean, I still see cleaner like wrasses out there.
Yeah, like you got cleaner wrasses, juvenile angelfish,
things like that. But
they're a little harder to take care of.
A little hard to take care of. Cleaner wrasse used to be like a staple in the hobby. I mean, it's like you can get one everywhere.
Yeah.
But they've dialed back on those. And honestly, I've had some for a long time.
Algae is what we're looking at.
Oh, algae specifically. Okay. Well, anyway.
That helps.
That does help. If it was fish, I was going to say cleaner shrimp. That's just what you should probably do now, which are fun to have anyway. So algae.
Well, depends on the size tank you got.
Definitely.
But if we're talking 75 gallon plus, Tangang is my go-to.
Yep.
So yellow tangs, purple tangs, convict tangs.
Any of the bristle
and all those bristle tangs. Yep. Top choices for cleaning up. Or a fox face. I'm a little partial because mine eats bubble algae.
Yeah, well, really any of the rabbit fish. There's because there are fox face is the classic, but there are some really beautiful ones too. Like,
yeah, there is. I'm just a little partial to mine because he eats everything.
Yeah,
except for
there's
all
like the scribbled, the magnificent. There's some really pretty ones out there. But yeah, fox face or rabbit fish are great because as the name suggests,
they eat like rabbits.
Yep, and if you've got a smaller tank, algae blinnies, they're a little hit or miss, but like starry blinny or a lawnmower blinny, again, lawnmower, as the name suggests, they'll beat the heck out of algae. They really will.
And if you have a nano tank, your cleanup crew inverts are going to be the biggest help.
That's your primary,
so look at your trochus snails, scarlet hermit crabs, if you have a nano tank. And another nano tank fish that I think is a little overlooked is those Rainford gobies and Hector's gobies. They also eat hair algae. Not quite as much as like a tang does, but they do eat algae.
Yeah, and I love Hector's gobies.
They're so adorable.
They're awesome. Anyway, and Rainfordy gobies.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving down, Triggerfish 45. I think this is going to have to be our last question, guys. Maybe we got a couple more on here. Might have time for both of them. All right, start with this one. Do y'all have any 3D printed items in your personal tanks? What are your favorite 3D printed reef-related items? I have a couple.
You got more than I do.
Yeah, right?
I got none.
Yeah, so Honestly, VCA, they do some really cool stuff, and we use a lot of their stuff here at BRS, so they're a great one to check out. Vivid Custom Aquatics.
Yep.
Yeah. So
I love them.
Yeah.
I like Black Friday. They had those tongs that were given out.
yeah,
Those are super cool.
super nice. But I use probably my favorite thing is the random flow generator. So it's an inductor, right? So it's adding a boost of flow from, say, your return pump, because it's pulling all that other water in like an inductor does, but it's also literally generating random flow. And you look at this thing and you're like, I don't know how that would work, but it does. Works great.
Physics.
Yeah,
Physics.
It's magic.
It's above
But
my
no,
head.
it really does. It just shoots that flow in all kinds of directions. So it's great. Adds that little bit of chaotic, turbulence to the tank and keeps everybody guessing. So that's probably one of my favorite things.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't have anything currently, but I have used VCA in the past. Just because I like the random flow generators, especially in those nano all-in-one tanks.
Yeah,
Just helps
perfect.
change up the flow where I don't necessarily want to get a second power head.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it's a great option. So there you go.
Yeah.
That's probably what I'd go with. So
Yeah, and I think we're a little over,
We
over
are-
an hour, so.
we are a little over, but I'm going to do money bag anyway. So green hair algae growing on my GSP wall. How do I tackle that? Got to manually remove it. Just scrape it off of there.
You might need to frag your GSP.
You might need to frag your GSP. If you're wanting your GSP to cover where it's going, like where that algae is, and it's like, I can't go there because there's algae, you're going to have to remove the algae.
Yeah.
That's it.
Use your hands, use a razor blade,
Yep. Get it off there.
frag your GSP, maybe give it a couple of watches.
Right.
Help it spread.
Sure. All right. So that's it. Everybody, thanks for joining us for another really awesome Q&A. I had a great time. Kyle?
I had a wonderful time.
Yeah,
if
he's
I can
lying.
come back.
He was telling me he hates this. No. Thanks everybody for joining us. Really great. Thanks for the questions. If you got any more questions, feel free to post them, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.